you claim to be the Messiah and God in human form. What does that
Absolutely.
mean? What does that mean?
So you can look at it in very many different perspectives. It's really good, essentially. What it means is something good. So by God, when I say a God, I mean a true God, which is someone that, of course, everyone is supposed to be, which is good. So someone that's loving. If you look at it from a religious spectrum or perspective, you can look at it as God is good, God is love. So being loving, being yourself, being what's natural, being what's great for everybody that everybody benefits from. And you could also look at it as like an anagram, like an interesting anagram where you add an O in there and convert it to good. As far as the true Messiah, the Messiah definition in the dictionaries actually has a very specific definition. And it's pretty interesting. Of course, that definition may vary according to which dictionary you use. But what's so beautiful about the essence of what it is a spiritual leader. And to be more specific, you could say a particular leader that is actually designated in a way to actually help lead all of the Jewish people and Israeli people. You could say the Israelites, and you can view the Israelites as all people, really, to the promised land. And the promised land, of course, is something that people can interpret as heaven, a state of heaven for all people everywhere. Of course, heaven wouldn't quite be heaven in the same way if anyone was suffering anyway, anywhere. So that's something that's very beautiful. It's very profound. You could say it's very prophetical. And what's beautiful about it is that the way that consciousness works and what people are capable of is actually all of the good and none of the bad that you can imagine. So anything that you could imagine or anyone else of any age or any religion or any background, whether scientific or you could say of some other type of academic background, or even just being just natural and inspirational and having fun. All of those wonderful things, the good things that anybody could ever imagine, people can live out and enjoy and they can experience. They can build it, they can create it, they can sing it, they can write it, and so on. And the list goes on infinitely what consciousness is capable of. And what's so wonderful is I'm actually writing what you can call the true word of God called the purpose. And it shares what everyone's shared purpose is as one universal entity. You could say the cosmos, or you can say the one almighty God, the universe. And it also shares what our individual purposes in life are, which are whatever anybody wants to do, so long as it's harm free. So I recognize everyone like yourself, every particle, every wave, like what your headphones are made out of, your beautiful plant family, behind you, which is beautiful that you have plants there with you as well. Your home, every single entity, like your microphone, as a part of the God, you could say the cosmos, if you're looking at it as an astrophysics type of perspective, or in a religious type of perspective, like Jehovah or Yahweh or Allah. And it is, you could say, a God in itself as being its own entity. So it's very scientific, it's very physics based, mathematically based, of course, principle and ethically based. And it's something that is so inspiring when people actually recognize this in a way that benefits them and what they are capable of. So, what you're capable of, what any person on this planet is capable of, or anywhere else, and what they can do with their lives forever, making good, loving choices.
So you're not the God. You are an expression of God as everything and everyone else is. Is that correct?
So you could say in a very unique and individual way. So each person is absolutely individual, one of a kind. So for an example, you and what makes up your body as a human, of course, you're infinite. You have infinite particles, infinite atoms, and infinite different types of parts of your body and a certain type of perspective. Of course, you could actually limit how many atoms you have in another perspective if you're talking about just the outside of your human edge of your body and inwards. And you can actually count different layers, like you could say, like say an onion has different layers or a tree has different rings. And so what you're made up of is a combination, a collaboration of different things. Ultimately, who you are as one individual is a collaboration while in ultra position. Ultra position is a word that I created to actually share two different things that are true at the same time that actually don't contradict each other. So for an example, you are infinite, and then you also have a certain type of shape, you have a certain scale. And you can actually equate all of these different things that make up your body, like the bacteria in your body, the good bacteria, of course, your bones, how many muscles. So that's something that you could say is limited in a way as far as how many muscles you have on your body. So I, Josiah, of course, who I really am innately and will always be, you could say my God particle, or if you're looking at it from astrophysics or physics, my boson, right, is just one of a kind. It's a unique piece of art, like yourself as well. We are different people in that perspective, while also being part of one united organism, like one democracy, one universe, for an example, one galaxy, a part of the Milky Way, and so on. So it's really purpose-based. As far as the speciality of how rare you are, it's infinitely valuable that you are absolutely one of a kind. You know, you will never be the same in one perspective, as you are right now in this very small fraction of however you measure, while at the same time in ultra position, which is also true, you will always be the same natural original person at your core.
So what exactly do you mean when you claim to be the Messiah? What makes you, Josiah, different
Mhm.
from the others?
Okay, so you would have to specify in some ways which others, for more detail on that. If you were to generalize other people on this planet, well, it really depends on what kind of categorizing you're going to actually give other people. So, as far as me personally, I am absolutely the prophesied Messiah on this planet in a very provable and factual way because of my technical knowledge of how the universe works, what my genuine intent is for everyone, and what I have been doing, and will be doing, and you could say the service that I am providing for everyone. So if you're looking at it as a position of a true God in human form, that is the righteous Messiah that different religions have actually mentioned would be here or be coming or returning to help guide the people of earth to the promised land, or you could say a heavenly state on this planet, then it's absolutely factual because I have actually already successfully shared on the videos like The Purpose, on BitChute and Daily Motion, and on YouTube until the channel got removed temporarily. I have actually shared all of the details for every single person, wherever they are, to have absolute heavenly life forever and live an immortal way of life on all scales. So this includes how to be absolutely harm-free. This is where the golden rule comes in, or the purpose of the golden rule, you could say. How to be absolutely harm-free to all life on all scales, which if one is, and this is also in physics and principles, is absolutely harm-free to all life, then what is that saying by default? Well, that means that you're being purely, perfectly loving to all people of all scales, of all backgrounds, of all nationalities, of all religions, of all countries, of all species. And when you are purely loving to every single life form that exists in the entire universe, you are actually being a perfect and holy God that you are meant to be. And when you do this, you are living the immortal way of life because you will have no negative electrical charges where they have that saying of guilty as charged. You'll never have a guilty charge of doing something harmful to somebody that you would, in this perfect justice system of the universe, have to pay back. Your conscience would actually have a permanent record of that as well, which is why it's so important to be absolutely loving to all people and forever, and to also practice, of course, what is required to do so. So reasons that, of course, for all of the good reasons, like love of other people, other life forms, for the human race as well as an entity in itself. I don't slaughter animals. Now, I was raised a human being on this planet. I've covered my life story to a certain degree on The Purpose. I actually don't slaughter animals. I don't slaughter birds. I don't hurt fish. I don't hurt animals in any way possible. And I've also shared the technology, like I mentioned earlier, to be completely harm-free to bacteria, to microorganisms, to plankton, to the viruses in the ocean, which are considered some of the smallest life forms in the ocean, with things like applying beautiful technology, like ultraviolet technology, for an example, so bacteria doesn't grow in your refrigerators or in your ovens, while using clean energy that is sustainable, non-polluting, and completely loving. That's what the purpose is all about. It shared all of that detail. And part of being completely harm-free is saying yes to what is loving for all people. And also that means saying no to what is harmful to anyone. And
So
that's what
why
a very democracy is all about.
so why should I or anyone else believe you that you're the Messiah or the prophet? I mean, I could easily just tell you that I'm the Messiah or I'm the prophet, and you should follow my instructions.
Well, for one reason is because it's true and it's in everyone's best interest.
Can you prove
And
that?
when you well, I just have in ways. So technical knowledge, absolutely. I perform miracles. So there's a lot of ways that I can prove it because it's so much fun. We can have so much fun with this. So nature, for an example, if you actually go to my YouTube, or not to my YouTube, if you go to my Instagram, all my social media actually has historic evidence of these factual photographed, videographed, and shared through text and different types of media miracles. If you go to my Instagram, you can actually take a look at the different times that the eye of providence has shown up, which is a very widely known symbolism on this planet for actually having an eye for prosperity. You could say God's all-knowing, all-seeing, all-watching eye, like a motherly figure or a fatherly figure. You can see it happening in unedited photos in nature. For an example, one photo I'll cite is a photo of a cuttlefish or a squid that's actually in the harbor that was taken here in Hawaii. Now, as I was on this spiritual journey, of course, here to give everybody the best things they could ever imagine, and by default, that would put an end to all of the harm, like the wars and poverty and disease, and all of the things that come from guilty charges. I actually was walking along this harbor, and there were so many beautiful examples. I'll give you a bunch of them right now. The squid actually was looking like a very common squid, a very beautiful, one-of-a-kind squid, of course, and it was sitting there in the harbor. And I love wildlife. I love Discovery Channel growing up. I love all people, and like everyone does naturally, like you yourself do naturally. And I took a photo of this squid, and right when I was about to take a photo of it, it actually flashed the eye of providence in its skin on the back of it. Now we're all consciously connected. What's so beautiful is that you can feel the power and the goodness and the love and the genuine nature and honesty when somebody is really sharing the truth and sharing what they're lovingly interested about. And that squid knew it as well. Now, one thing that's so beautiful that is connected to the Jesus story is that Jesus was very well known for advocating for equality. Now, for more context of what kind of equality is optimal, it's of course equality with the ultimate, almighty, purely loving God that you could ever imagine. And that's who each person's supposed to be. And that squid that day was part of it, and being that beautiful type of loving eye of prosperity. And the photo's there, so you can see it, you can zoom into it. It's a very clear eye, very similar to things that Horus is connected to, which is actually a type of deity of Egyptian history that is also connected to the Jesus story, which actually came long before the Jesus story, which also shares a lot of historic attributes, like born on December 25th of a virgin, representing a solar deity, representing the life for people, and so on.
Are
And
you able
what life,
to, sorry, are you able
yeah,
to perform a
go ahead.
miracle or get the eye of providence to appear right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been sharing it right now. That's a wonderful way. There's all kinds of beautiful things, so we can play with this. So if you would like to share something now, I've been sharing verbal communication with you. How about we do something fun? And I'll do it with the gods with us and the entire universe. And we can make this very personal for you. Now, what are you most interested in? And I'll just do this naturally because I didn't premeditate any of this in a certain perspective, while what we're doing is also predestination and another beautiful perspective of ultraposition.
What am I most interested in?
Yeah,
Art, painting.
that's wonderful. Do you paint and do
I
you make
do.
art?
I do. Yes.
That's that's so fantastic, actually. Would you like to share right now what it is that you paint, or a link to where we can see that?
I don't have anything now, but I can link you later.
Okay, cool. Right on. Okay, so you can share that on the video or on a link to the video. And when we upload that, we can help fulfill your dreams and your passions about art. And it's so amazing because actually, before we started this interview, I was actually thinking of art. And I actually thought of a beautiful image when I was laying down and just meditating and resting for a little bit. And it was a beautiful type of a simple kind of a square figure or a square frame. And from one part, and if you're viewing it from the way I was viewing it, then you would be looking this way. And so this would be on the lower, okay, this should be on your lower left, I'm thinking. Okay. And from there, a variable series of different types of waves came out from that, going up to the upper this side on from where you're facing, and it had jagged squiggles and different types of variable waves, and then different types of swirl waves and all this kind of stuff in different vivid colors going that way. And that was one of the images that I got right before this, which is very beautiful and particular. I love art myself. The thing is that the amount of how often I think about art like that. Do you actually is your art on canvas,
Yes.
like
Yes.
paintings? That's beautiful. The how often I actually think of things like that are actually not very often in many ways. I mean, I love Monet. I love art of all forms, sculptures. I love plays. I love poetry. I love all of the good, just as anybody would naturally. And so that is very profound because that's the truth. I would say the last time I thought of a piece of art on canvas was maybe actually, okay, not too long ago, maybe about a few days ago or so, because my girlfriend actually has some paper on the floor in the living room that's part of some items that she hasn't been using. And I was thinking about some of the art that I would be doing for the book, The Purpose. And so that's really beautiful. And that is actually part of what I was sharing with the squid as well. So there's a dynamic connection of conscious connection, because that squid knew what I was there for and agreed and shared that beautiful nature of our purpose and conscious connection. And that vision that I had while I was meditating before this video is absolutely truthful in every detail. And that is so beautiful because I was thinking about doing that piece of art myself. Of course, since you're already doing that, I mean, I can offer that to you. We can share that. If you want to do that yourself and you can create that however you want. Of course, you don't have to. It could just be a beautiful miracle for this video alone. And also, too, part of the purpose is to inspire and enable and help people do what they're loving, what they enjoy, what they're passionate about. And that's what I want everybody doing. And that's what I want you doing. Of course, along with whatever else you want to do as well. So, I mean, that's a beautiful example of a holy miracle right there.
Okay, sure. I'd love to move on to the recent controversies that's surrounded you. So you had a YouTube channel called The Purpose, where you would have discussions and you would outline your, I suppose, outlook to the world and how people should live. Part of that and a conversation that came up, which ended up having your channel pulled down, was you basically saying that pedophilia is acceptable, zoophilia is acceptable, and incest is acceptable. Can you explain a bit of that? That seems pretty ungodly.
Okay, so first off, we want to be absolutely clear about the definitions. Now, I am
Sure.
fully aware that pedophilia has actually gone through an evolution of definition over time. Now, the original Greek and Roman definitions of pedophilia, spelt with P-A-E instead of P-E-D, that pedophilia, which is one of the original actual sources of the word pedophilia from Greek and Roman history, actually lauds and celebrates pedophilia. And it is something that if you were to actually look up what it means broken up, so pedophilia, pedo actually means something like child or children, and philia means something like friendly or lover. So it's essentially something like a child lover or you're child friendly. And that is the original definition of pedophilia. That is what I shared with everybody online. And in that context, of course, the entire series is about being completely harm-free. And the other definitions that you can find, like for example, on Google, which is actually derived from Oxford Languages, which is a very common search engine. Many people use Google and Oxford Languages, is actually having a sexual attraction to children. So that
Right.
is actually not denoting anything negative at all. It's just saying
That's
sexual
not
attraction.
that's not denoting anything negative at all. Sexual attraction to children.
Absolutely not. So you can look up what sexual
Can you can
means
you
as
can you
well.
explain that? Because it is actually extremely harmful towards children to have any kind of sexual
Uh,
acts toward them.
so by definition, that is actually incorrect. And you can actually look up what sexual means, which
I've got
is
the
so
definition
beautiful.
here. It says the definition of sexual is relating to the activity of sex,
Uh-huh.
and that's
Okay.
Cambridge Dictionary.
Wonderful. Okay, relating to the definition of sex, do you have the definition of sex?
The activity of sex. But I mean, again,
Absolutely.
I think you, and I've seen in some of your other videos, you seem to really focus and hone in on like dictionary definitions. I mean, we can
Absolutely.
be real here, and we both know what we're
Yes.
talking about when we talk about sex. You know,
Absolutely.
penetration, masturbation, things
Mhm.
of that nature that adults do, not children.
Enjoying food together,
No, no,
having
no, no,
any
no, 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 no,
interaction.
no. Not intimacy, not connection. We're talking about sex here.
Okay, so you would like to talk about the definitions that are
Not
specifically intimate?
definitions, just exactly what you're condoning and what you're not condoning. Because
Okay, so what I'm condoning,
when everyone in the world uses the word pedophilia and we use the word sex, we know exactly what we mean. We don't need to, you know, bring up all these old definitions, because that's not at all what anyone's talking about. You may have found a definition that says that, and I feel like often when you talk about this, you get very vague on purpose, and I would like to get very specific as to what exactly you mean.
okay, so I have been perfectly specific. And for one thing, your statement is actually false.
Which
Not
part?
all that all people actually view pedophilia with the same definition.
Okay, I guess. Okay, sure. So I'm talking about sex with children. Do you think that's
Mhm.
okay?
So, what I advocate for is that anyone and everyone of every age and any species can make whatever loving choices they want with whoever wants to make those choices with them, so long as they're harm free and they have my loving support. And that is God's law universally.
That's pretty fucked up, dude. That's pretty fucked up. Really.
So, fucked up in what definition? You mean negative or positive?
Negative. You seem to be focusing on just the positive aspects of lovemaking and
That's
things like
because
that.
I am being positive.
So surely you must know how much trauma and horrific things people have to live with who have gone through sexual abuse from a family member, from someone close to them. And I've seen in past videos you say so long as it's consensual. We both know that a 5-year-old can't consent to a sexual
A
activity.
5-year-old makes their own choices. And your definition is very different when you actually change the words to abuse. I have never advocated for child abuse or any type of abuse like the abuse of animals in slaughterhouses. Now, this is something that's
We're not
very
talking about
important
that. We're
for
not
people
talking
to
about that.
understand.
We're
It's
not
very
talking about that.
similar because
It's
any harm is harm to all people. Any love is love to all people. So please do not mix the definitions.
so
That is where
all the
people have
trauma.
gotten themselves in
So
trouble.
all the trauma that many people that even I know that an adult, by your framing of this, an adult engaged in the sexual activity with them, the behavioral problems they've got, the trust issues they've got, the crippling self-esteem issues they've got, the depression, the suicidal ideations, just the zero self-worth that came from that kind of sexual activities that was inflicted on them as a child when they could not consent because their brains aren't fully developed. Do you think that's all fine?
Absolutely not. So again, I do not advocate for any harm of anybody or any abuse of any life form at all. So of course, you'd have to contradict my
Explain
word to actually
explain
say that
a
I do.
situation where that could be a consensual positive experience for that child.
So there's many examples. So for one thing, you'd have to define what you're actually defining as a child. Now, many
5
people
years
in the
old.
United States, okay, 5 years old, absolutely. Well, playing, all kinds of things. If you look up other definitions of sexual, like in Google or in the Oxford Dictionary, which I did actually publicly and on video in the show cite which dictionary I was using. So I did cite that I'm using the Google definitions and the Oxford language definition. So it's very important for people to understand what language that I'm actually using. And I did clarify it in full context, and I did not violate any of YouTube's policies, which is so beautiful about what we've been doing.
You did
And
actually, you did. I looked up their policies, and you promote bestiality, you promote incest. That is directly against their terms of service.
so it actually is not. So technically you could define
It is,
incest.
yeah.
It actually is not, because the definition of what I'm saying is loving and it's intellectual content. And I clearly
By
cited
your
the
definition,
dictionaries I use,
but
which is
that's
loving and harm-free.
that's by your definition, really. That's kind of
Which is
irrelevant.
perfect. For an example, like in the Bible, Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve, or Noah, or if you're a Christian and you think about Moses or Noah's Ark, right? Those are ancestral relationships. To actually think that every human
I
being
don't believe
on
in the
earth,
Bible.
well, look at it this way. We are all genetically related. So you are in an ancestral relationship with your girlfriend, if you have a girlfriend, or your boyfriend, if you have a boyfriend, to a certain degree and a measurable degree. We are on one planet with one human race, and every human being on this planet, scientifically, these are facts, is genetically related to each other. So every relationship is by definition an incestuous relationship.
So
Now, if you
because
look,
of that, it's totally fine to have sex with your sister or your mother.
as long as it's harm-free, people have actually
What if you have a
misdiagnosed.
child? What if you have a child with them and that child has abnormalities, as we know happens?
So the abnormalities would not come from loving decisions. Abnormalities would come from harmful choices like
Like
slaughtering
having
animals.
sex with your family member?
That in itself is absolutely not harmful. Think
Okay.
about it. There's a lot of
But
people that have had relations with their family members, like royalty. Royalty in the history of Australian people, for an example. The Queen of England actually is connected to incestuous relationships in their monarchy and their royal family. This is part of our universal history. And
sure.
there is never a problem so long as it is harm-free. And that's the beautiful truth.
Sure. So look, just back to the pedophilia thing. I'm just really confused as to why you feel the need to promote these kinds of things, why you think it's worth putting out there. I mean, can I ask, are you a pedophile?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Have you engaged in sex with a minor?
By definitions, by different definitions, yes, I've had sex with people that are under 18.
How, okay, like, and definition, would that be a penis inside of one of their orifices?
Yes, absolutely. It was
Okay,
beautiful
and
and loving and completely harm-free.
you have a child?
I do have a son, yeah.
Right, and
Yeah, he's
has
beautiful.
that happened to your child? Have you done that with your child?
I have never had intercourse with my child, no, and I have no desire to have intercourse with my child.
And if a 65-year-old man went up to your child and asked if he could have sex with him, and your child said yes, sure, not knowing what it was, you would be absolutely fine with that?
See, that's the thing. So technically, he wouldn't be agreeing to something not knowing what it is, for one thing.
So if he
If
just said
they
yes,
actually
sure.
both knew what it was and wanted to do it, of course, which is what is involved in consent, right? You can't consent to something that the person hasn't told you what is. And that's a very important thing for everybody to understand the physics of things like linguistic agreement. Now,
Uh,
if they were to actually consent, in making love, they love each other. They were to come to me and say, Josiah, right? Obviously, they would have to come to me to talk to me about this, or they could be talking about it together and not even come to talk to me about this. And they were to say, Josiah or dad, or brother, I love your son, and or your son loves me, and we would love to have a relationship together. And they both agreed, of course, I would absolutely support it. And I
well,
would
how old's your
actually be
son?
committing.
How old is your son?
Well, he's 5 months old right now.
Wow. Wow. So you've just recently had your son taken away from you by authorities, haven't you?
So what happened actually is I did not have my son taken away from me. They were unfortunate people that mixed up their definitions, like you did earlier on this video, and
Silly
they
me.
actually
Silly
responded
me.
very they responded very ignorantly and very hatefully. A lot of death threats, a lot of harmful types of satanic and demonic types of
It's really
threats,
strange. It's
and
really
they
strange
are
that,
actually
isn't
the
it?
ones committing abuse. Well,
Oh.
it's not strange actually in a way as far as they're being the wrong parties actually.
So
It is
back to your
strange as
original
far as the
definition.
definition of they
Back to
shouldn't
your
be doing harm, of course. So you could say it's strange and
back
unusual
to
for
your original
people to be
definition of being godly, of only doing good. You'd think that someone's in who is in total alignment with being good would be only
Mhm.
attracting good. It seems that you've attracted a lot of controversy, a lot of hate. It seems like you've been generating a lot of upset feelings in people, and by the sounds of it, even breaking some pretty horrific laws involving authorities and child protective services actually having to protect your child from you because the thing the things that you're promoting sound I fully support the authorities taking your child because you don't seem like a very safe person to be raising a child.
So you are actually wrong and you're incorrect, and you are actually blending and saying that the people are not responsible for their hateful mistakes. The thing is, I am not responsible for their decisions. I am responsible for my decisions.
You're
My decisions
responsible for the
are
minors that
loving.
you've had sex with.
Yeah, for well, for my choices, my side
Mm,
of it, which is
mm,
beautiful.
beautiful. Okay. Um,
So again,
so
I just want to help you out right now because you have started to walk a path where you're actually guilty right now, charged if you are supporting child abduction, child abuse, and false information and slander. So I want you to make
where's
sure
the
that
false
you actually
information?
stay true to your definition.
What's the
Well,
false
for one thing, you're
information?
saying that you support child abduction. So part of what
Protection.
happened
I
because of
support
people
child
spreading
protection.
false information, so that's the thing. They abducted my child with officers that had weapons. Now that's wrong. To carry weapons is wrong. To abduct children is wrong, especially when I am innocent and I committed no crime.
You're
I
not
did not
innocent,
abuse
buddy.
my child in
You're not
any way.
innocent at all.
You're lying to yourself.
Okay. Okay.
And you
Josiah,
agreed that you're lying to yourself just now.
Josiah, I think it's not really working out too well, this kind of what you're promoting. I mean, for you, for your
What I'm doing
family.
is perfect, actually. I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars in pledges. I have shared the answers to how the entire universe works, as well as the solutions to how to put an end to child abuse, like trying to push false beliefs that children do not make their own decisions or that they cannot make good decisions.
It sounds to me like you are attempting to start a cult. You are claiming
I
to
don't need
be
to attempt
you're
to start a cult. There are wonderful types of definitions of cult, like a type of devotion to a common cause. My
mm,
devotion is towards what is most loving for all people. Part of that is to respect, like Jesus Christ did, as far as the equality of all people, to recognize that you have a responsibility to always make harm-free choices and
mm,
not to make excuses, like just because other people murder animals and birds and pollute the planet and pay taxes that fund wars overseas, that it's okay, because it's not. Just like it is not okay to spread false doctrine, like pedophilia in the definition that I shared it, which I also cited the definition source, and that is completely harm-free, and the definitions of sexual, which is relating to the instincts, something that is loving, something that is attractive. To mix that with something like child abuse, when people like yourself and all of the other people that were watching my loving channel and the true Messiah in human form on this planet should have been putting those types of energies towards loving application of saying no to things that are abusive to children, like circumcision. How many of those people that actually wasted their time and energy being guilty of saying things that were not true about what I shared with people are actually guilty of not standing up to say no to child genital mutilation?
you kind of
That's
skimmed
something
over
that's
before.
a law
You totally skimmed over
in the
all
United
the
States of America.
trauma, all the horrific mental health conditions that people have to live with because adults like you have just used children to sexually gratify themselves. The ripple
and you're
effect
guilty
that has
of
on
saying
people's lives, the ripple effect that has on people's lives is beyond horrific. And I don't care what you claim is harmful. Seems like you're focusing on
You should care, otherwise you're hurting yourself.
Seems like you're focusing on a small part of that interaction that serves you.
You're contradicting yourself, saying you don't care and then acting like you care.
Okay, well, to prove that I don't care, I'm going to wrap this one up, buddy, because
Okay.
I don't know what to say, mate. I don't really like.
Well, the video is on
I don't
YouTube.
really like what you're
I said the same thing on YouTube. The video is still there. Please make sure your definitions are straight. Please don't accuse anyone of doing something harmful. And please recognize the truth that you are guilty of harming animals if that's what you do. That's part of where your guilty charge is. The same thing as supporting corrupt governments, whether it's the government
have you ever been
or any other harmful practices like advocating for circumcision.
Josiah. See you, mate.
How about you spend your time saying no to circumcision publicly and put your time to good use and care?
Okay. Thanks, Josiah. All the best. I hope authorities catch up with you soon. Bye.
I am the true authority with the gods with me, brother. That's why.
All the best.
Recognize how dangerous it is.